Hello you lot, Miller Corner here, welcome back once again, and if you've spent any time watching this channel you'll know that I love a small Fiat. There's just something about Fiat city cars, their charm, their character, and the fact they can even make your daily commute to work an experience to have fun and smile about that hugely appeals to me. Most of us know about the newer models, but Fiat's fun small car production has been going on for decades, and I think everyone deserves to know about it. So this is the Miller Corner guide to 60 years of fun small Fiats. Disclaimer, this guide is only to do with Fiat's smallest cars at time of production. They're city cars if you like. That means there's not going to be any Punto, Uno, Bravo or anything other than the smallest car Fiat has made at each point on this list. With that said, let's get into it. The first and most obvious car on this list is the one that really kick-started Fiat's obsession with making fun small cars, the original 1957 Fiat 500. Launched in July 57 as the Nuova 500, this was designed to be Italy's people's car in the model of the VW Beetle for Germany or the Citroën 2CV for France. The 500 was so simple and cheap and easy to run, you could even buy basic parts for it from local news agents. The idea was that even if you knew nothing about cars and had never owned a car before, you could buy a Fiat 500 as the cheapest car on the market at the time and run it as your family car. Italy wasn't particularly affluent at the time, so Fiat took various cost-cutting measures to make sure it was affordable as possible. That fold-back vinyl roof might seem like a bit of a luxury, but actually it's more of a cost-cutting necessity. Steel was extremely expensive at the time, so Fiat, rather than make a whole steel roof, took a section out of it and put the rollback vinyl in there. The engine in the 500 was predictably small and simple, a 479cc 2-cylinder air-cooled engine producing a whopping 13 brake horsepower. The Fiat 500 is not a heavy car, but even so, that tiny engine will only get it to 53 miles an hour. That said, in a car that small and that light, I don't know that you want to be going much faster. The 479cc engine in the 500 was said to take the little city car over 60 miles on a gallon of petrol, and of course it goes without saying that it's super easy to maintain and repair. The 1958 500 Sport version solved those performance issues though. The foldback roof was dropped in favour of an all-steel one, and the engine climbed from 479cc to 499. It might only be an extra 20cc, but it did climb the power output as well, right up to 21.5 screaming Italian horses. Cute, stylish and simple it might have been, but powerful it was not. Until, that is, the racing team ABARTH came along. Their first interactions with Fiat were making race-spec 500s to compete in various rallies, and the 1964 ABARTH 695 SS was genuinely quick. The engine was enlarged further to 689.5cc, but more importantly it was race tuned to put it all the way to 34 horsepower. That might not sound like a lot, but when you consider that's almost triple what the standard car made, that is a massive jump. The 695 SS also featured flared arches for wider wheels and a permanently open engine cover for both stability and to cool the little engine. Around 1,000 695 SS were produced, but only around 150 are said to remain. They're so rare, so cool and so desirable, they sell these days for around £50,000. The original Fiat 500 is a proper classic. Stylish, easy to maintain and repair, fun to drive, absolutely tiny and still relatively cheap to buy these days. What's more, with 3.9 million produced over its 18-year run, there's plenty of this Italian style icon to find the one for you. By the 70s though, the 500 really needed to be killed off. It was seriously outdated and it needed a replacement. Thankfully Fiat had one in mind with the 1972 Fiat 126. It's fairly common to hear the 126 referred to as a Maluch, which is actually a Polish word which translates as little one, and the 126 definitely deserves that title, measuring just 3.05 metres in length. It might have been released 14 years after the original Mini, but that's a near identical length to it. Speaking of the Mini, the 126 nearly matched its sales numbers too, The Mini might have been in production for far longer, but the 126 managed 4.7 million total sales, definitely comparable to the Mini's 5.4 million. The 126 launched with a 594cc engine, making 23 brake horsepower. In 1977, that output was up to 652cc, but unfortunately, that output didn't actually change. Thankfully, in 1987, the 126 Biz was released. It was water-cooled, it was up to 704cc, and it made a simply astonishing 26 horsepower. Sadly, the 126 never got the ABARTH treatment, but thankfully a German company called Pop did custom-make convertible versions of the 126 Biz. These were called the Pop 650 and the Pop 2000. I can't be the only one that thinks that is awesome and seriously wants one. Fiat only actually made the 126 from 1972 to 1980, but a Polish company called FSM bought the license to produce 126s, and from 1973 to 2000 they were producing the 126P in a plant in Tychy in Poland. The Polish manufactured Polski Fiat 126P was the cheapest new car in Poland for years. I went to Poland recently and I can very much confirm that they are still really common and cheap as hell to buy. You can get a good 126 for about 500 quid, and let me tell you, it wasn't easy not to try and bring one back hand luggage. The 126 isn't as instantly beautiful as the 500, but I love its rugged, roughy-tufty styling. I also love how resolutely small they are, and because of its 27-year production run in Tychy, the Polish people have taken the little Maluch into their hearts, and given my massive want for one, I think I have as well. By 1980 though, consumers wanted something bigger, more modern and more usable, but thankfully Fiat had just the car in mind with the 1980 Fiat Panda. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro of Ital Design, the Panda was likened by him to a pair of jeans for its simplicity and its practicality. The engines fitted that brief perfectly, with initial Pandas in some markets coming with a 652cc engine from the 126, but there were also an 843 and 903cc versions, with horsepower ranging from a lethargic 30 horsepower to, hold on to your hats, 45 horsepower. In terms of engines, the Panda was fairly unremarkable then, but the variants of it were very much not. In 1983, the Panda 4x4 was launched. It featured a bored-out 965cc engine with 48 horsepower, but that was just one of many changes. The Panda 4x4 was actually the first ever transverse engine production car with four-wheel drive, and what a system it was. It was manually selectable with an ultra-low first gear for pulling away up hills. Under normal road conditions, the Panda 4x4 actually starts in second. Austrian company Steer Puch actually manufactured the drivetrain, comprising of a new clutch, gearbox, power takeoff, three-piece prop shaft and a live rear axle, including differential and new brakes. This was then supplied to the Fiat plant in Italy, where it was fitted to a reinforced body shell for the 4x4 version. Panda 4x4s are pretty much unstoppable off-road thanks to their high ground clearance, aforementioned four-wheel drive and their super lightweight. In the Italian Alps, they're still used by farmers and some police officers. There was also the 1990 Panda Elettra. This was in fact a fully electric Panda, which is way ahead of its time for the period. The battery pack replaced the rear seats and occupies some of the engine bay, wherein there was also a 19 brake horsepower DC electric motor. Unfortunately, where it dropped emissions, it gained weight. 450 kilos of it in fact, which almost doubled the Panda's weight. This necessitated stiffer springs and uprated brakes just to cope with it. Thankfully, in 1992, Fiat saw fit to deal with that extra bulk by upping the electric power to 23.8. Very specific there. But the extra weight and costing 3 times as much as a Panda 750 led unfortunately to the Elettra being discontinued in 1998. But it wasn't just Fiat making weird variants of the Panda. In Spain, Seat bought the rights to build it, badged as a Seat Panda from 1980 to 1986. They even made a weird van variant called the Seat Trans. What's more, the Seat Panda has got some religious provenance, as Pope John Paul II actually rode an specially modified Seat Panda with no roof or doors. Now that is cool, but it's not the only specially modified Panda people mover, as in 2007 Pope Jeremy Clarkson I rode in a 46-foot custom-made Panda limo. Now that is how you arrive at an awards ceremony in style. That brings us to the end of the 80s, but as I'm sure you'll probably know, there is plenty more small Fiat history to come. That said, unlike most history lessons, I don't want this one to drag on, so part 2 that brings us up to the present day will be released this Friday at 5 PM. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified when that video is released, and I'll catch you then everybody. Have a good one.